Hello chaps, welcome once again to John Robson Guitar Tuition. As always, I do hope you're well. Today we're going to take a look at 5 guitar related products that when they were launched were supposedly going to revolutionise the industry. They were going to change the way guitars were built. They were going to change the way the guitar was played. They were going to completely transform the essence of what it meant to be a guitar player in some cases. And needless to say, none of this stuff ever happened for reasons that, with the benefit of hindsight, are blindingly obvious. So let's dive in and take a look at the guitar equivalents of Betamax video, quadraphonic sound, 8-track cartridges and those silly 3D TV glasses things. Here we go with number 1.
The Parker Fly.
Yes, indeed, the Parker Fly. Now, I remember all of the hype surrounding this guitar when it was launched back in 1993. I remember review after review after review in all of the guitar press claiming what a game changer this instrument was. It was going to revolutionise, there's that word again, the way that guitars were built. It was going to just completely transform the industry. It was a wake-up call to companies like Fender and Gibson and other traditional guitar manufacturers. Why? Well, its USP was the fact that it was made in a different way. It was built around an exoskeleton, which apparently made the guitar much more rigid than traditional guitar manufacturing techniques. Was this a problem that needed solving? Had we all been sat there for decades with our Telecasters and Les Pauls and Stratocasters and 335s thinking, I wish somebody would invent a way to stop this guitar feeling so floppy? Apparently so. Now, I actually had an extended loan of one of these back in 95, I think it was. Basically, one of my students, who was also a good mate, had one, and he was going away on holiday for a couple of weeks, and he said, do you want a loan of the Parker? I said, yeah, go on then, I'll give it a shot. And so I played it, and, you know, the claims that were made for the sustain of the guitar, well, there was nothing wrong with the sound. You know, it sounded okay, but was there a marked improvement in sustain over and above like the other 2 guitars that I was playing at the time, which were a Fender Stratocaster and a Gordon Smith GS2? Well, frankly, no. And then we get to the elephant in the room, really. It looks. I mean, to be honest with you, it fell from the top of the ugly tree and hit every branch on the way down, didn't it? It's just not a pretty looking guitar. I mean, I know this kind of thing is subjective, beauty is in the eye of the beholder and all of that, but trust me, I know all about ugly. I look at this face in the mirror every morning, don't forget. So the point is that the looks were to do with the ergonomic design. It was form following function. It was, you know, the way it looks is as a result of its design, that it's designed to be kind of completely ergonomic and comfortable and, you know, a new playing experience. Except when you pick it up, you realise that it's about as ergonomic as being poked in the ribs with a pointy stick, because that jutty out bit there on the upper horn is like being poked in the ribs with a pointy stick. And when he was interviewed about this, the man behind the Parker Fly, Ken Parker, said, oh yes, but you know, once you get used to it, once you adjust to it, or words to that effect. No, I'm sorry. You don't build a guitar that is about as attractive as a bulldog licking piss off a thistle, all in the name of it being comfortable, and then when you pick it up, it's uncomfortable, and then say, oh yes, but you just need to get used to it. Argument simply doesn't wash, I'm afraid. So there you go. The Parker Fly. It's an expensive, ugly, uncomfortable, mediocre sounding guitar, and it's no longer in production. What a surprise. Next.
The Synthax.
Okay, back in the early to mid 80s, the charts were dominated by cheesy synth pop acts. Things like Human League, Orchestral Manoeuvres in the Dark, Yazoo, Depeche Mode, all that kind of old cack. And, you know, it was obviously thought in some circles that guitarists needed to get a slice of this soulless bleep machine action as well, so enter the guitar synthesizer. Now, I'm not suggesting that there is no place for MIDI guitar controllers or guitar MIDI controllers. Work it out. Just that perhaps the claims that were made back then about, and not for the first or last time either, about the traditional guitar being a thing of the past, the guitar is dead. I'm sure we've all heard it a million times. You know, suddenly guitarists had access to all of these Casio-like warbles and whistles that keyboard players had been using of late. What could go wrong? Why wouldn't we love that? Leading this revolution, I guess, was the Syntax. £6,000 worth of MIDI controller that made absolutely no sound of its own. It just triggered sounds from outboard synths. So you needed to factor in the cost of those as well. You know, you hooked it all up with about a mile of spaghetti and hoped that it worked. It was notoriously unreliable, and you were good to go. You too could sound like an Erasure tribute act. Needless to say, despite the fact that both Gary Moore and Alan Holdsworth made a lot of complimentary noises about the Syntax, I guess they never really kind of continued using them though. Once they'd cashed the checks, obviously. Needless to say, it didn't catch on. Us guitarists just continued to enjoy the sound of the guitar because we like the sound of the guitar and we're not really interested in making it sound like a Casio keyboard or anything of that ilk. And by 1988, the Syntax was consigned to the dustbin of history. Next.
The Bond Electra Glide.
Have you ever noticed how troublesome frets are on a guitar? They're a big problem, aren't they? And this problem was addressed in 1984 by Andrew Bond of Bond Guitars when he designed the Electra Glide, a guitar without a traditional fretboard. It used a moulded stepped design instead, like you can see there in the picture. The idea being that you just replace the whole fretboard rather than having the guitar refretted. So in essence, what he'd done was he'd replaced the hassle of having a routine bit of guitar maintenance done every few years by having a routine bit of guitar maintenance done every few years, because it still took a guitar tech to install the fretboard. And, anyway. So it made about as much sense as an ashtray on a motorbike, to be honest with you. But it was other things about this Bond Electra Glide guitar as well that failed to make it ignite the public's imagination. It was made from synthetic materials, carbon fibre and so on. And everything was push button on this guitar, whether you wanted to change pickups or adjust the volume or tone controls. There were no traditional knobs or switches. It was all little buttons that you had to press. So what you had was a guitar made from synthetic materials with a fretboard lacking frets, which solved a non-existent problem and made simple on-the-fly adjustments of volume, tone, pickup selection and all that a bit of a faff, to be honest with you. Oh, and it cost round about the same as a Stratocaster back in the mid-80s, which is what most people went out and bought instead of a Bond Electra Glide. Next.
The Effects Rack.
Yes, indeed. Now, in about 1987, I think it was, I read an editorial in one of the guitar magazines. I can't for the life of me remember which one it was. But basically it was along the lines of the effects pedal is dead. Indeed, yes. In a few years' time, it confidently predicted that we wouldn't be using effects pedals anymore. We wouldn't even be using amplifiers, for that matter. What we would have instead is a rack-mounted system of effects and preamps feeding a stereo power amp that goes out to like some EV-loaded stereo speaker cabs, and that was the future of guitar tone. The amplifier and the pedal has served us well, but it's time to move on, etc., etc. And a good friend of mine back then actually bought into all of this. He got rid of a really nice rig, actually, a Marshall JCM 800 half stack, and he had a few Boss pedals on the floor, chorus, delay, that sort of thing. I think it was chorus, delay, flange, a couple of other bits and pieces. And and he got himself, a big rack set up, and all kind of twinkly LEDs and LCD readouts and patch cables connecting it all together, and, you know, a big foot controller at his feet and everything. And a couple of months later I saw him at a gig, and he was getting a great sound out of it. He really genuinely was. But it was a sound that sounded remarkably like a Marshall JCM 800 with a bit of chorus, delay and reverb, which was sort of what he was doing before then. So, you know, apart from the headache that he gained from, you know, figuring out how to make all of this technology sound like the rig that he just got rid of, what had he actually achieved from it all? It's hard to say. Fast forward to 2019, is the effects pedal dead? You know, when you go to a pub gig, are you likely to see the guitarist in the band plugging into the ubiquitous rack full of twinkly LEDs and LCD readouts and with stereo speaker cabs? Or is he more likely to be using a combo with a few pedals in front of it? I'll let you answer that one for yourself. But just bear in mind that next time anybody confidently predicts what the future of guitar tone is, then just remember that back in 1987, everybody thought it was the effects rack. And, well, how did that one pan out? So just bear that in mind next time anybody's telling you about their Kemper or Line 6 Helix or Fractal Axe effects and how that's going to be the thing that finally kills the guitar amp off. Next.
The Gizmo Tron.
Okay then, the Gizmo Tron, the final item on our list. This predates all of the other things by some years. It came out in the mid to late 70s, and it was the brainchild of Kevin Godley and Lol Cream from the band 10cc. And essentially it was yet another solution to that age-old problem of people wanting the guitar to sound like an instrument that wasn't the guitar. This guitar sounds too much like a guitar. What can I do about that? Here's the Gizmo Tron. That was essentially the shtick. Basically, it was a Heath Robinson type contraption that you attached to the bridge of your guitar, and there was a little wheel corresponding to each string and an electric motor that when you pressed the switch, the wheel would turn around, buzz around and bore the string and create all manner of sounds from your guitar that made it not sound like a guitar anymore. Can you think of any other instrumentalist that would go for this? Like there's no device out there that can make a saxophone sound like an oboe or vice versa, is there? But yet we seem to keep seeing this idea resurfacing in the guitar world every few years for whatever reason. Once again, it was billed as something that was going to revolutionise what it meant to be a guitarist. This is going to change the way that we play the guitar forever, and it just didn't. Largely because it was notoriously unreliable, and, you know, it appealed to a small niche market, I guess, but it was a commercial flop. And it did actually resurface a few years ago, actually. I think it was 2015. It was debuted at the NAMM show that year, and I'm not sure what claims are being made about it this time. I'm sure it's not as hyperbolic as it was back in the 70s, and I guess we'll see how it pans out as to if it's going to you know, revolutionise the industry all over again, much like it didn't in the 70s. So there you go. There are my 5 guitar-related pieces of equipment that promised to transform the industry and then just didn't. If you have any thoughts on these, then please leave them, as I'm sure you will, in the comments section below. And if you've enjoyed this video, thank you for watching. It's been a lot of fun to make. Please hit the like button and subscribe and hit the notification bell and share it on various social media outlets if that's your kind of thing as well. Why not? I would much appreciate it. So I will just say thank you very much for watching, and I'll bid you all a good day and look forward to seeing you all again next time around. Bye for now, folks. And don't forget before you go to check out my Udemy courses, which you can see are available via my website, which is also where you can contact me to get in touch for some one-to-one tuition, either via Skype or in person if you live local to me. I also have merchandise available on my Teespring store, and of course all of the links are in the description. See you next time, chaps.